My girlfriend said, "I can't choose you over them." I replied, "I won't be a backup plan." I packed a duffel, left my key, took a transfer downriver, and saved the group text, calendar note, and ring invoice screenshot until my new HR logged calls from family who knew my employee ID. The shared calendar was still open on the kitchen tablet when I got home, bright blocks of color stacked like a plan I was not allowed to question. One entry was new and bold, and it had a name I did not recognize. It said Founders Ball Rehearsal Dinner, Bring Garrick. I stood there with my work boots still on, feeling the first quiet warning. I was 44 and I worked at the river water plant on the edge of Paducah, where the pumps never really stop humming. My job was to read pressure gauges, trace leaks, and run tests so clean water keeps moving even when something breaks. That day the air in the plant smelled like chlorine and hot metal, and my shirt still held that sharp scent. I walked into our bungalow and smelled lavender detergent, and the sourdough starter my girlfriend kept on the counter. Her name was Sable Cavanaugh, 41, and she worked as a records coordinator at the county public services office. She had a badge, a code of conduct, and access to files that were not supposed to become gossip. We had been dating almost 3 years, living together for one, and we were talking about marriage in that slow, real way. Not engaged yet, but it felt close. I had been saving for a ring, the kind you can wear without worrying it will snag on a valve handle. I even had a plan to propose after the Spring River Festival, under the string lights by the food trucks. I did not tell her that part because I wanted one moment to be simple. Looking back, the moment was never going to be simple. The first time I met her family, they smiled like they were doing me a favor. Her mom asked what church I went to, and her dad asked if my job had a pension, and her aunt asked if my last name was local. I kept my tone polite and my answers short. It felt like I was being inspected, not welcomed. Sable told me they were protective, and I tried to respect that. I showed up to dinners. I helped wash dishes, I held doors, I laughed at jokes that were not funny. But every time I left, I felt like I had taken a pressure test and barely passed. I told myself love takes work. Then Garrick Weller appeared and everything tilted. He was 40, ran a flashy riverboat tour business and wore linen shirts like he was always on vacation. He had a bright smile, a loud laugh, and a way of calling Sable Sav like he owned the nickname. Her family loved him fast, like they had been waiting. I first saw him at her cousin's birthday barbecue at a lakeside pavilion. The smoke from the grill mixed with sweet kettle corn from a stand nearby, and kids were running through the grass. Garrick slapped my shoulder like we were teammates and said, "Man, you're lucky. Sable is the best thing in this county." Her mother laughed too hard at that. On the drive home, I asked Sable, "Why is he always there?" She stared out the window at the dark water and said, "He's just family friend stuff." I asked, "Does he think he has a chance with you?" She did not answer right away, and that pause felt louder than any words. A week later, she invited me to a formal dinner at her parents' house, the kind with cloth napkins and a prayer before food. The living room smelled like furniture polish and lemon cleaner, and the same framed photos were on every shelf. Garrick was there again, already pouring drinks like he lived there. I watched Sable's shoulders tense, then relax, like she was bracing for a script. After dinner, I found her on the back porch while the others talked inside. The porch light drew moths in slow circles, and the wind chime clinked like nervous laughter. I said, "I need the truth. Are you and Garrick something?" She swallowed and kept her eyes on the yard. That was confrontation one, and it cut clean. She said, "My family loves him. They'll never accept you. I can't choose you over them." The words landed like cold water, and for a second I could not feel my hands. Then she added softer, "I'm sorry, Arden." I could have argued, begged, promised, fought, done the whole performance. But something in me went quiet, like a system shutting down to avoid a bigger failure. I said, "Okay," and she looked confused, like I had skipped the part where she wins. I walked inside, thanked her parents for dinner, and drove home in silence. Here's practical advice number 1, and it's not romantic. When someone tells you they will not stand with you, do not try to convince them to grow a spine on the spot. You can love someone and still leave, because dignity is not optional. If you stay, you teach them that your feelings are negotiable. For 3 days, I didn't bring it up again. I went to work, checked gauges, logged readings, and kept my face steady. Sable acted normal in the mornings, like coffee and quiet could erase a porch ultimatum. At night, she scrolled on her phone with that tight look she got when she was choosing words. On the 4th day, the communication proof arrived without me chasing it. The kitchen tablet buzzed with a group message preview because it was synced to her number, and she left notifications on. The message header said Kavanaugh family, and the first line was from her mother. Make sure Arden doesn't show up Sunday. Garrick is bringing the ring box. I read it once, then twice, and my chest went hollow. There were more lines beneath it, like a plan was already moving. Her aunt wrote, "He's finally doing the right thing," and her father wrote, "Sable will thank us later." My name sat in that thread like an obstacle, not a person. I waited until Sable came out of the shower, hair wrapped in a towel, face relaxed for the first time all day. I held the tablet up and said, "Explain this." She went very still, eyes flicking across the screen. For a moment, guilt sat on her face like a shadow. Then she did what she always did when she felt cornered. She went quiet, then turned sharp. She said, "Why are you reading my family messages?" That was confrontation too, and she tried to flip the whole thing onto me. She said I was snooping, that I was insecure, that I was making her life harder. She said her mother was exaggerating and ring box was just a joke. When I asked why my name was in a group plan to hide me, she snapped, "Because you don't fit here." I looked at her and realized the porch statement was not a bad moment. It was a policy. I said, "So you're letting them erase me?" She didn't yell, but her eyes flashed with anger like she was tired of pretending. She said, "I'm not losing my family over you." That night I ran my own pressure test, not at work, but inside my head. I asked one simple question. If I stay, what does the next year look like? And the answer was always the same, me shrinking, them smiling. So I moved on in silence, exactly like she said I wouldn't. I didn't announce it, didn't post it, didn't send a long message. I packed a duffel with work clothes, grabbed my folder of plant paperwork, and left my spare key on the table. The sourdough starter bubbled softly on the counter like nothing had happened. I slept in my truck that first night at a rest area with bright lights and the smell of diesel. In the morning, I called my supervisor and asked about a transfer opening I had once turned down. It was in a smaller town downriver, at a plant that needed someone who could handle old pipes and stubborn problems. He asked if I was sure, and I said, yes, like I had been sure for a long time. My temporary place was a rented back room in a bait and tackle shop outside Metropolis, Illinois, with a narrow bed and a ceiling fan that squeaked. The air smelled like river mud and worm bedding, and the walls were thin enough to hear the owner's radio. It wasn't comfortable, but it was peaceful. Peace can look ugly at first. Sable texted that day like she had misplaced something, not someone. "Where are you?" Then, "This is childish." Then, "We need to talk." I didn't respond because every answer would turn into a debate I didn't know. Another mini hook kept repeating in my head. If she can't choose me when it's calm, she won't choose me when it's hard. 2 weeks later, the money proof hit, and it was brutal in a quiet way. Our joint savings app sent a notification because it was still linked to my email for statements. There was an invoice screenshot attached in the notes, like someone wanted a record. It showed a deposit paid to a jeweler for a men's signet ring, engraved with Sable's initials beside Garrick's. The amount was the same size as the ring budget I had been building. My hands went cold, and I had to sit down on the edge of the bed. It wasn't just her family pushing. She had stepped into it and helped steer. Here's practical advice number 2. If you share money, you share risk. The moment respect cracks, separate accounts, and lock down auto transfers, even if it feels rude. It is not rude to protect yourself. It is necessary. I called the bank, removed myself from the joint account, and set my portion to transfer out based on the paperwork I had. I canceled the shared grocery delivery membership, removed her from my car insurance, and changed my emergency contact at work. Not revenge, just clean boundaries. The cleaner the cut, the faster the wound closes. That night, Sable's calls started, one after another, like she was trying to wear me down. She left one voicemail that sounded almost calm, saying she didn't understand why I was making this dramatic. She left another where her voice cracked, then hardened, then cracked again. I didn't respond. A month passed, and she did what her family wanted. She showed up publicly with Garrick at the county founders' ball. I didn't learn it by stalking or sneaking around. I learned it because the county posted photos on their public page, and a coworker asked me if I had seen the big announcement. I clicked once and saw Sable in a black dress, Garrick beside her, both smiling too wide. Behind them was a banner with the county seal and a familiar ballroom stage. The caption thanked Sable for helping coordinate records for the event, like she had never broken a rule in her life. That image hurt, but it also clarified everything. Then the location proof finally matched the first warning that had haunted me. I opened the shared calendar again because I still remembered that bold entry from weeks ago. Now it had a note attached, typed in neat lines. Rehearsal dinner at the Copper Finch private room. Meet Garrick's parents. Keep Arden out of sight. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was planned like a schedule, like I was a problem to manage. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned, and then I closed it. A pressure test doesn't lie, it just reveals. The big twist arrived a week later, and it didn't come from her. It came from my new HR office at the plant. They told me someone had called the facility every morning asking for my shift and my address, claiming to be family. They were calm about it, but the question underneath was serious. Who is trying to reach you and why? I said, it's my ex-girlfriend's family. The HR rep asked if I wanted the calls logged, and I said yes. Then she added something that made my stomach turn. The caller knew my employee ID number. Only 2 people had ever seen that number on paperwork in my old house. One was me. The other was Sable, because she used to help me file benefit forms in a folder by the kitchen. I needed guidance that wasn't emotional, so I called an older attorney in my new town, a man named Osric Dane. He met me late at a marina fuel dock office where the floor was gritty with sand and the air smelled like gasoline and fish. He didn't give speeches, just short instructions. He said, document everything. Don't threaten. Don't answer their bait. Osric told me to send one formal notice to Sable and one to her employer because she worked in records and her family suddenly had details they shouldn't. He told me to keep my tone plain and my facts clean. He said, you're not punishing her, you're protecting yourself. That difference matters. I sent the communication log to the county HR address along with screenshots of the group message plan and the calendar note. I included the public founders ball post as context, not as gossip. I wrote one sentence that made it official. I believe county access or county communications are being used to target me. A few days later, an authority figure called me back, the county HR director, voice clipped and careful. She asked if I was willing to confirm dates and provide the bank statement that matched the ring invoice. I said yes, because truth is simpler than fear. She thanked me and said an internal review would begin. That should have been the end of my involvement. I had left. I had transferred. I had rebuilt a small life that fit me. But then the daily calls started, exactly like a dripping faucet you can't ignore. Sable's mother called first, leaving a long message about family mistakes and how stubborn Garrick is. Her father called next, complaining Garrick was rude at their house and talked down to everyone. Then her aunt called, voice trembling, saying Sable looked tired and scared. I listened to none of it all the way through. The killer receipt came as an audio clip Sable didn't mean to send me. It was a voice note, 2 minutes long, probably meant for her mother, and it landed in my messages at 112 a.m. I pressed play because curiosity is human, and my stomach turned as soon as I heard the shouting in the background. Sable's voice was low and shaky. She said, "He won't let me see my friends. He says you all promised I'd obey." Then a man's voice cut through, sharp and mocking, saying, "Tell them to stop calling your little water boy. He's not saving you." The clip ended with a sob and a door slam. I sat on my bed in that bait shop room, fans squeaking overhead, and felt something go still inside me. That audio wasn't my business anymore, but it was also proof of what her family had created. They wanted control and they got it, just not the kind they could manage. Sable called the next morning, frantic, then quiet, then frantic again. She said she messed up and needed to talk. She said her family had forced Garrick on her, and she let it happen because she was scared of being alone. She said she missed me and wanted another chance, like love was a coat you can grab again after you throw it down. Osric told me to take the call only if it served a purpose. The purpose was closure and stopping the harassment. So I agreed to meet Sable once, in a public place, with my lawyer a text away. We chose a glass-walled meeting room at the county mediation office, the kind that smells like stale coffee and printer paper. Sable walked in looking smaller than I remembered, eyes ringed like she hadn't slept. She sat with her hands folded and stared at the table, quiet guilt sitting heavy on her shoulders. I waited, because rushing someone like her only gives them control again. Then she looked up and said, "I didn't do anything wrong. You're making me the villain." That was confrontation 3, and it followed the same cycle Osric warned me about. First she denied, saying she never shared my info, never planned to hide me, never meant any harm. Her voice stayed steady, but her eyes darted like she was searching for a safe lie. I slid the printed call logs across the table and let the paper speak. Then she minimized, saying her family overreacted and the group messages were just talk, and the calendar note was something her mom typed. She tried to shrink it down until it sounded like nothing. I said, "My name was in your family's plan and you didn't stop it." Her jaw tightened and the quiet guilt cracked. Then came the partial admit, and it was small at first. She admitted she let Garrick help her family organize things, and she admitted she knew about the rehearsal dinner note. She admitted she didn't correct the ring deposit because it felt easier than standing up to them. Then she admitted she told her mother my employee ID, just so they could talk to you, like that made it okay. Finally, she tried the emotional move, and it was strong because it was real. She started crying and said she felt trapped between family and love. She said Garrick turned mean after he got what he wanted, and her family didn't know how to undo it. She reached for my hand and said, "Please, Arden, I can choose you now." I didn't pull away fast because I wasn't trying to punish her. I just moved my hand back slowly and said, "Choosing me now isn't love, it's panic." She flinched like I had hit her, and then anger flashed across her face. She snapped, "So you're going to leave me with him?" I kept my voice calm because I had practiced that kind of calm at work. "I didn't put you with him. You did." I stood up and said one sentence that felt like the final pressure test. "I won't be a backup plan for a family that never respected me." After that meeting, County HR did what policies do when proof is clean. They placed Sable on unpaid suspension pending review of misuse of access and improper contact, because the harassment traced back to information only she could provide. Garrick didn't stand by her when consequences showed up. He posted a smiling statement online about private matters and disappeared from her family's house, leaving her to handle the fallout alone. The town judged in its own quiet way. Her mother stopped getting invitations to committee lunches, and her father's buddies stopped laughing with him at the diner. The same people who once treated me like an outsider started whispering about what the Kavanaghs did to that water plant guy. Shame can be a court without a judge. I didn't celebrate any of it. I just kept working, reading gauges, logging numbers, doing my job. Over time, my supervisor trusted me with bigger responsibilities because I stayed steady under pressure. 6 months later, I was promoted to lead operator on nights, and the raise felt like a clean reward for a clean choice. I met Lyra Venn that winter at a volunteer sandbag line during a flood warning when the river swelled and everyone showed up with gloves. She was 39 and worked as a train dispatcher, the kind of job that requires calm and clear choices. Lyra spoke plainly, listened fully, and didn't play games with silence. Being around her felt like breathing. We cooked at my small rental after work, simple food, soup, bread, quiet music. The room smelled like onions and bay leaves, and the window rattled when trucks passed. One night I told her the story in short pieces, not to get pity, just to explain why unknown calls made my stomach tense. Lyra didn't ask why Sable did it. She asked what I learned. Here's practical advice number 3, and it's the kind people skip until it's too late. If a partner's family is running your relationship, you don't have a relationship, you have a committee. Boundaries aren't cruel, they're clarity. And when someone refuses clarity, your best move is a quiet exit. A year after I left, Sable sent a message request on a social app I barely used. She wrote, "I'm sorry, I should have chosen you, I'm miserable, please just talk." I stared at the screen for a long time, not because I wanted to answer, but because old habits die slow. That same day, her father called again, voice hoarse, complaining Garrick had drained money, wrecked trust, and vanished when it got hard. He said, "You were the only decent man she had." I listened to the first sentence and hung up. I wasn't their repairman anymore. That night, Lyra and I ate a home-cooked dinner on my little porch, bundled in blankets, watching the river haze in the distance. The air was cold and the porch light made our breath look like smoke. My phone buzzed once with another unknown number, then went still. I didn't reach for it. Some people think walking away means you stopped caring. For me, it meant I finally cared about the right thing. I can't fix a family system that wants control more than love, and I won't run another pressure test for people who already failed me. Thank you so much for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe the channel.